Today, there was a Bloomberg News piece out. They surveyed a large number of economists about the largest economic threats to Great Britain. And number one and number two were Brexit.
And number 3, 4, 5.
Yeah, and so
the economists sometimes get something right.
So tell us your thoughts about this.
Well, look, it's obviously very, very serious that you've got a significant section in the governing party of the UK and the Conservative Party who have defined their politics in opposition to the European Union. They forced the Prime Minister to pledge a referendum. He's now trying to negotiate his way through it, and he wants to have it sooner rather than later. But obviously, with the situation in wider Europe, low growth, refugee crisis, Greek crisis continuing, it's not the best circumstances. I think it is the risk. I wouldn't say it's a likelihood that Britain will fall out, but there's a significant risk of an accident. So if I was an economist answering your poll, I'd say you've got to take this seriously as the biggest short to medium term risk to UK prosperity.
Then if you're taking it seriously, what action do you take? If you're an investor or if you're an economist, when you say take it seriously, what does that actually mean? What does it entail?
I think the first thing is that you've got to advise your own supervisors, your own authorities that this is something that needs to be planned for, you need to hedge. But secondly, I would say business needs to speak out. Globalization has been good for Britain, it's been good for Europe, it's been part of an extraordinary wave of prosperity and innovation. The voice of business should be heard in the debate. I mean, I'm based in New York now running an NGO, so I'm out of politics. I was foreign minister, so it's not my game anymore. But as I'm still a British citizen, I'll be a voter in the Europe referendum. I know where I want the rest of my life, my kids' lives to be, and that's as part of Europe, not somehow declaring independence from it.
Let me ask the emotional question. It's easy from New York in the shadow of the Statue of Liberty. How many Syrians should make the pilgrimage to Canterbury? I mean, within the scope and scale of what we're dealing with, how do you perceive X number of people and families and children and school expenses going to a small shop like Canterbury?
Well, I think the most important is that the most vulnerable get housed in the rich countries. The UN says the 10% most vulnerable Syrian refugees, so that would be 400,000 of the 4 million. That would be widows and orphans, essentially. They should be relocated into the richer countries. Now, the US has taken 2,200 Syrians in the last 4 years. You know the debate about security. It's harder to get into the US as a refugee than any other way. So I would say, okay, let me give you the answer. I represented a constituency more or less the size of Canterbury.
Okay.
It was a constituency of 65,000 people in the UK. And at the moment, if the UK took 25,000 people a year, that would be about 40 per constituency.
Great.
Now, no one's going to tell me that 40 people would have overwhelmed my constituency. Justin Trudeau in Canada, 25,000. The US, if it was taking its share, if it was playing the leadership role, if it was living up to the Statue of Liberty, would be taking about 100,000.
David, this is so important, we've got to repeat.
Yes.
Given the scale that you see and the experts see, 40 people end up in the emotion of every single town and village and city. Roughly 40.
Should do, but obviously bigger. I mean, our constituencies, our districts are smaller than yours. There's 65,000 people. But the thing is that the 10% most vulnerable, those who've lost everything, they've lost family members, they need a new start. And they're not going to find it amidst the chaos that exists in too many parts of the Middle East. And I think there's a really important point here that people don't understand. It's not just the numbers and the lives that are changed. At the moment, our allies in the Middle East feel they're on their own, then that we're not standing with them. And so symbolically, as well as in substantive terms, refugee resettlement is part of our bargain.
Yet this has become conflated in the U.S. political arena with terrorism and national security in a very serious and very, sort of hyperbolic way. Is that a solvable problem in an election year?
Well, I hope so, because I have great faith in the in democracy and the American system. Now, the truth is that the lie about the Syrian passport in the Paris attacks caused enormous damage to this debate. It gave an excuse for people to say a refugee equals a terrorist. The people who are fleeing as refugees are running away from terror, not trying to cause terror. They are the most heavily vetted entrants into the US. You have to prove that you're entitled to become a refugee, not that you have an automatic right. And 750,000 people have come to the US since 9/11 through the refugee resettlement program. And this is a proven American success story that it would be a tragedy if you step back from.
So given the size of these problems, whether it's refugees, whether it's Brexit, the other things, you were a major leader in the United Kingdom. At some point you must think, maybe I should go back and help lead us out of this.
It's very nice of you to say that. In the end, it's the voters who choose, and we lost the election in the government I was part of lost the election in 2010. So Look, the job I'm doing at the moment, I've been in New York for 2 years now, running an NGO that was founded by Einstein in New York in 1933 to help rescue people from around the world. We now work $700 million organization in 30 countries. I feel I'm doing good, not according to the statistics, but according to the individuals, and that's the way I think I'm playing my role.
No question about that, but do you rule out the possibility of going back and standing again?
I never rule in or rule out, because people say to me, the college kids come and say, well, what should I do in my life? And they're 20 years old. I say, look, I'm 50 and I haven't figured it out. So, you don't rule in.
A tough question, like, should they build the third runway at Heathrow?
Yeah.
That would get them in trouble.
There you go.
Of course they should.
There you go.
Well, we're lucky that David is in New York doing the work he is. David Miliband, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.